Okay, so let's explore what Google Tag Manager is. So effectively, this is a free tool from Google for marketers and website owners to add tags to their website. Tracking tags for Google Analytics and other third-party non-Google companies. It could even be conversion tracking tags for Google Ads. You can also do some kind of custom work as well. The main point here is that one, it's a free tool, and two, you can add tracking tags to your website without the need to go to the back end of your website and look at all that code and figure out how to add it every time. Google Tag Manager, in essence, is just added to your website once. Once you do that properly, you'll have this interface here, which will be lit up for you, and you can add tags just by doing a few easy steps, and then the tag is added to your website. You don't need to bother a developer, and you don't need to QA things afterwards. All of the QA, all of the implementation, all of that is done here in GTM. Okay, let me show you. So here's GTM right here. This can be accessed at tagmanager.google.com, right? That brings you into this area here that shows you all the different accounts you have added. I have this test account here, but if you're logged in with a Gmail account, it'll show you all of the accounts that are associated with that particular Gmail account. Google account doesn't necessarily even need to be Gmail. Okay, all of those will be listed here if you have GTM accounts. If you don't have one, then you can create one by clicking on this Create Account button. But for me, I'm going to click on Main Container. That's what I've called my test account. Now, to start, you don't have any tags in the container. With GTM, there's a tag that I always like to start with, and that's the conversion linker tag. Oops, linker. All right, you can call it that, and then you click on tag configuration. Find it, here it is, conversion linker. Click on triggering. Make sure that it fires on all pages. This is kind of a stitching tool. With GTM, if you have it on all of your pages, it ensures that you're grabbing the Google Click ID from the URL. Let's say after somebody clicks on an ad, the conversion linker will hang on to that until a conversion takes place, and it'll ensure that you have proper attribution between an ad click and the conversion. So always add a conversion linker tag, fire it on all pages. The variables section. Okay, let me show you something here. So by default, the variables section here doesn't have a lot to work with. You'll notice if you go to configure, all of these buttons aren't even checked. The first thing I do when I create a Google Tag Manager container is I check all of these boxes. This allows me to make, let's say, a trigger that says, hey, when the page URL contains thank you, I want to fire a Google Ads conversion tracking tag. You can't really do that without this page URL variable. There's other really great ones as well, but for maximum flexibility, go ahead and check all of them. Okay, bear with me while I check all of them. I mean, a good way to do this too is to check all of them, add the conversion linker, and then have that in a container that you import every time you want to create a new Google Tag Manager container. That's one option, or you can click 100 times like I did. So there they are, all the things that I added. Actually, sorry, they're all here, built-in variables. We added more than what came with the container. Click on configure and add those. Okay, we've got this tag section. So as it is right now, right, you can submit and publish. You can write notes if you want. I didn't. Now, this won't do anything, right? What you have to do is ensure that it's implemented on your website. That's the only kind of technical implementation in a code environment that you have to do. You only have to do that once, assuming there's no data layer to configure. The basic setup is just to add the Google Tag Manager code snippet. The way that you do that, very simply, is clicking on your Google Tag Manager ID. So I can click on this one here. At the very least, typically this is all that's required, to just add this code snippet as high in the head of the page as possible. So head is at the top of your HTML code. This happens before any of the graphic design on your website loads. Right? You want it at as high up as possible because you don't want anything else on your page to interfere with it. So I can copy this, and I'll show you. I've actually already done this, so it's like one of those cooking shows, things are already done. So I have a test website here. Okay, so if I right click and go to view page source, yeah, you can see here I've added GTM right under the head. Okay? So ask your developer or implement it yourself if you know how. You want to just add, again, this code snippet under the head. If you have a WordPress website, there's a really good plugin to use. It's called WP Code. Once you install that plugin, there's an option on the left called header and footer. Go there, grab this. In the header section, paste that in there, hit save or publish or whatever the button is. At that point, GTM is installed in your WordPress site. But my example here is just a basic HTML website because I didn't want to spin up a WordPress instance, but I know a lot of people are using WordPress. Okay, so that's basically how you install GTM. Again, quite easy. So let's have a look here. Let's create a tag. So again, we've got a tag section here. Let's click on New, and let's call it Google Ads Conversion Tracking. Yeah, the naming convention should be whatever you like. You can say thank you, right, page. That's just how I'm doing it in this example. I don't really have a format, but you should get used to some kind of format so that things stay uniform. Click on Tag Configuration. Click on Google Ads. Click on Google Ads Conversion Tracking. Now, in Google Ads, on the left, if you go to Goals, then click on, I believe it's conversions or all conversions, something like that, but it's in the goals section. This is the area where you can create your conversion action. Now, if you already have a conversion action, click on that action and then click on the button, usually to the right side of the button options when you go to implement it. It's called Use Google Tag Manager or Install with Google Tag Manager, something along those lines. That will show you what your conversion ID is. So the conversion ID, this pertains to your Google Ads account. The label, this pertains to the conversion action itself. It's saying no Google tag is found in this container. So you can click on Create Tag, and you see it'll just build it for you. So do this after you enter the accurate conversion ID and the conversion label. Okay. I'm just entering, of course, test data here, not a big deal. But this is it. This is how you add a very basic Google Ads conversion tracking tag. Now we have to tell Google Tag Manager how the conversion tracking tag will fire, how it will be triggered. Okay, so you can create a trigger. You can click on this area here. And you can click on this plus button. And let's call it thank you page trigger. These are very basic. These are very basic examples. Sorry, stuttering over my words here. But the idea is you can get as basic or as complex as you need to with Google Tag Manager. There's a lot of flexibility here, but let's do a very basic trigger example. Thank you page trigger. We've given it a name, and then let's click on page view. So we don't want to trigger our ads conversion tracking tag on all pages. We want to say some page views. Okay. We select our variable. This is going to be one of the ones that we've enabled before. And we are going to look for page URL. Under P, there it is. Page URL contains thank-u. That should work. I think that's how I have my pages structured. But we'll do a preview and check to see whether that's how things are. And it's not the end of the world. If you get it wrong at this stage, you can always correct later. Click on save. Click on save. Okay. And then let's grab our URL of our test site and click on preview. We're going to hit preview before we submit or publish the container. We're going to put our URL in here, and then we're going to click on connect. Okay, so here's our test page, and it says Tag Assistant connected. So this is our debug tool in GTM. We go back over here, click on continue. So the conversion linker is configured to load on every page. So we can see here that this tag fired one time, which is good. Only one page loaded, so that makes sense. And then we have our connected Google Ads account, right? AW stands for AdWords dash the conversion ID, and that fired once. We can go through it, right? So there is no consent initialization, right? The Google Ads connection was fired on initialization. This is a data layer event here. Maybe we can talk about that another time. But these are the things that GTM is detecting. Container loaded. This is where the conversion linker is going to fire. That makes sense. And the DOM. So those are all the elements in the body of the page. So DOM ready, you can have things fire on there as well. In our case, we didn't trigger anything to fire there. The only things we've triggered to fire is when everything is initialized, the Google Ads account fires. That's good. And then when the container loads, conversion linker fires. Nothing on window loaded either, because no windows have loaded, so we didn't need to mess with that. Okay, perfect. So this tells us a lot. So let's see whether our Google Ads conversion tracking tag fired. So here we go. We can change. I mean, I have no button for this, but I'm assuming it's thank-u.html. Yeah, thank you for reaching out. So thank-u is what we've told our trigger to use to fire our Google Ads conversion tracking tag. If that exists in the page URL string, then fire the conversion tracking tag. So I've manually changed it to that URL, and now let's have a look whether our Google Ads conversion tracking tag is fired. Yeah, so here we go. Thank-u, and you can see it detects that a different page is loaded. So this was the initial home page. This is the thank you page. And the reason it's blue, right, that's an indication that GTM is on this page as well. We can double check that by going to the page source. There's GTM. This is the same code that was on the home page. When you install GTM and you add the code to the head, it will deploy GTM on all pages. So you don't have to worry about ensuring that it's on all pages, as long as you use the same header, let's say, for your website. It's unlikely that will change. but that does a great job of deploying it everywhere. Same goes for this. So thank you for reaching out. This is our thank you page. And again, so here we are. Container loaded, yeah, on this page. And then we've got Google Ads conversion tracking thank you page. Google Ads conversion tracking succeeded. So this is great. Click on this and we can see. Here's our firing trigger. So the event equals gtm.js. This indicates that we had code for gtm.js. Perfect. It's not what we set up though. What we set up was page URL contains thank you. So this is true. That's why we got a check mark here. Okay. You can switch this from names to values to see more detail. So this is the URL. There's the thank-u and contains thank-u. So you can see why it's true. Okay, perfect. You can dive into this even more. Variables, data layer, consent, not configured. But if you click on container loaded, for example, what variables fired when the GTM container loaded on the page? So let's click on that. Okay, GTM fired. The URL was grabbed from the URL area in the browser. Container ID, these are all default standard things. You can see we've got a custom JavaScript variable that I created before. I called it name. And then I'm grabbing the string, thank you for reaching out. So a lot of things are loading from a variable perspective when the container loads. Page path, page URL. And if you want to do things in the container itself with your triggers or with variables, it's important to understand what loads and when. So the way to look at that is by going through the various things that happen on this page. You know, when the container is initialized, when the container loads, when the DOM is ready, and what loads when that happens, right? That will determine how you configure your triggers. But we did a very basic trigger, and it seemed to work very well. So Google Ads conversion tracking tag, right? We got this from Google Ads. We got the ID from our conversion action we want to use, the label from that conversion action as well. And then we created a thank you page trigger. Okay. There's all sorts of other triggers you can create with events that are sent to a data layer, with let's say a button click. I won't go into that now, but that's also quite easy to create. But you can extract elements from the page and use that in your tag manager instance. You know, if it's in the variables section, you can echo that in a tag. For example, here, if you had a value here, you could create a variable that pulls that from the page. If it's dynamic, you could echo it here for conversion value, or you could have it passed to the data layer. So the data layer is an area that sits between your website and GTM, let's say. It's kind of like a storage area where you can add things to it and then pick out of it from GTM. So you can see here's my data layer. So here, like event conversion, email is test@test.com, visitor type is customer, order is 1234. So I'll show you how you can use something like this, right? Let's say conversion tracking. Let's say our order number or transaction ID, that works as an order number too, but I could go curly brace. If you type it in twice, something will come up. Yeah. Scroll to the bottom and click on new variable. Let's call it All right, and let's see what it is again. Yeah, so it's just called order in the data layer. So I'm going to just grab this, copy, go to variable configuration, click on data layer variable, and then it's going to look in the data layer for a variable called order, and then it's going to pass the value, in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, as the transaction ID. Okay, let's save and see if that works. This is an example of using not something like page URL. You're using a data layer variable. Let's say that was pushed by your website, or your developer added a data layer. This is how you use GTM to pick out of it. In this case, we're grabbing the order ID. Okay, let's do a preview. It should have, yeah, it's got my URL from last time. I can click on connect. Okay, great. I'm going to change my URL to thank you like we did before. thank-you.html. Great. And now I'm going to go back to my debugger, continue. Okay, so container loaded. I'm going to click on Google Ads conversion tracking thank you page. Check it out, transaction ID. So remember, all I added here was a variable for transaction ID. And then if you look at our code, the idea here is that whatever your transaction ID is, it will get sent here as a value for the order variable. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, it could be whatever it is for that transaction. And you can see here that adding the variable pulled it, oops, right here, sorry about that. It pulled it 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the data layer variable. It could have been anything, but it just pulled it. So that's useful. That's how you use data layer variables. You know what? I mentioned button clicks. Let's do one of those as well. Okay, so let's go new. We'll just call it Google Ads conversion button click. You can call it whatever you like again. So I don't know, let's do this one here. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll go, if somebody clicks an email, okay, so here's my test@test.com email, and that's clickable. So for example, if I click this, it would open up Gmail. Same with this phone number. If I click this on mobile, it'll open up the phone app. So let's make a conversion for every time somebody clicks the email and then the email application opens. Okay, conversion, yep. So just take configuration, you want to click here, Google Ads conversion tracking. I don't remember what I wrote. Let's see if I can go back to it. There it is. That's what it was. Label, again, I'm just doing test data, but if you have the conversion action, grab the data from there. Okay. Now let's set up a trigger, and I'm gonna go plus, and I'm gonna say mail to button click. We're going to click on just links, and we don't want all links, we want some links. So the variable we're going to use is click URL, and the URL needs to contain mail to. Okay, you can put a colon there. So what I'm looking for here, right, if I right click the email and then click on inspect, you can see the link. See, href. The link here is mail to : and then it has the email. So my trigger says when the click URL of a link contains mail to, colon, fire this conversion tracking tag. Save. Preview. Connect. Okay, so I don't want it to fire yet. So perfect, it didn't fire. So let's see, container loaded. Google Ads conversion tracking button click. Okay, so let's see, test at test.com. I clicked it. So here's a variable fired here called link click, right? That was the one we used in GTM, remember? Here it is. Yeah, just links. The preview mode calls those link clicks. So if I click it, you can see here, Google Ads conversion tracking button click fired. We can click on other links. This one here, tell. You can see link click again, and then the Google Ads conversion tracking button click did not fire. That's because the logic is what we said. Mail to test at test.com needs to contain mail to colon. Then we can see when I clicked on that phone link, click here, the condition was not satisfied here. Tell colon, this test phone number, contains mail to colon. No, it doesn't. So it didn't fire. Really great debugger that Google has created here with Google Tag Manager. You can see how fast we just found out whether something is working or it's not. And you can see also how fast we set up 2 conversion tracking tags. Of course, this is all with test data, but all of this applies to your current setup. All right, you just have to replace it with your data, that is. Just whatever your website is, configure it to work with that, and make sure your triggers are all working properly. Grab your conversion tracking information from the conversion action section of Google Ads, and that's it. Very cool. All right. Once you're all done, you click on submit. Write some notes for yourself so that if you ever have to roll back, you know what you're rolling back to. So click on publish, continue. Cool. That's it. All good. Any questions, let me know. But I hope this was a good overview. Thank you.